and my friend, Senator Schumer, went over to the Supreme Court. And on the steps of the Supreme Court building, I was there. This is what Senator Schumer said. I quote, "I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, not Justice Gorsuch, not Justice Kavanaugh. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you," Senator Schumer said.
You won't believe
Did you guys just hear that?
Senator John Kennedy just walked onto the Senate floor and calmly read Chuck Schumer's own words right back to him. And suddenly the room got real quiet. Because nothing shuts down a political speech faster than a receipt. Democrats are out here pushing a shiny new ethics bill for the Supreme Court, acting like they're the guardians of integrity, while conveniently forgetting that their own leader once stood on the steps of the court and practically threatened two justices by name. Not Justice Gorsuch. Not Justice Kavanaugh. Just Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, followed by the unforgettable line, "You will pay the price." Yeah, not exactly the tone of a man hosting a Sunday brunch. And the best part? Kennedy didn't yell. He didn't rant. He didn't pound the desk. He just read the quote slowly and calmly, like a teacher catching a student copying homework word for word. And the moment he did, the whole narrative about ethics started looking a lot less like reform, and a lot more like revenge. If you thought that moment was wild, stick around. Smash the like button, hit subscribe, and let's watch the full clip before I give you the full breakdown.
And with all the respect I can muster for Senator Durbin, and I mean that, Dick, I do not believe that most of my colleagues think this bill is about ethics. This bill is about abortion. In June of 2022, the United States Supreme Court decided the Dobbs case. It returned the issue of abortion to the American people through their states. While the Supreme Court was deliberating that case, my colleague and my friend, Senator Schumer, went over to the Supreme Court. And on the steps of the Supreme Court building, I was there. I remember it like it was yesterday. This is what Senator Schumer said. I quote, "I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, not Justice Gorsuch, not Justice Kavanaugh. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you," Senator Schumer said, "if you go forward with these awful decisions." Close quote. What we're seeing today with this legislation, in my opinion, but most senators agree with me, is part of the promised whirlwind. And I do not believe that we should try to undermine the integrity of the institution of the Supreme Court of the United States because we're unhappy with one of its opinions. I will withhold my objection at this time, Madam President, to allow my friend Senator Lee to speak.
Is there an objection?
All right,
full video plays.
Now that you've seen the whole exchange, let's be honest about what just happened. Senator Kennedy didn't just criticize Chuck Schumer, he exposed the entire playbook. Democrats are trying to sell this Supreme Court ethics bill like it's some noble crusade for transparency. But Kennedy walked into the chamber and reminded everyone exactly where this really started. With Schumer standing outside the Supreme Court issuing what sounded an awful lot like a political threat. Think about the absurdity for a second. The same party that lectures America nonstop about dangerous rhetoric had its top Senate leader standing outside the nation's highest court saying, "You have released the whirlwind and you will pay the price." That's not a policy disagreement. That's something that sounds like it belongs in a mob movie. And Kennedy didn't exaggerate it. He didn't paraphrase it. He just read the quote. Slowly, calmly, word for word. And you could practically feel the oxygen leave the room. And here's the real punchline. Now those same Democrats want to turn around and pass an ethics bill aimed squarely at the Supreme Court. Right after the court made a decision they hated. What an incredible coincidence, right? The moment the court returns the abortion issue back to the states, exactly where the Constitution says it belongs, suddenly Washington politicians decide the justices need oversight. Funny how that works. Kennedy's point was simple, but devastating. This isn't about ethics. It's about anger. It's about a political class in Washington that got used to the Supreme Court rubber-stamping their agenda, and now they're furious that the court actually acted independently. So what do? They try to put a leash on it, dress it up as reform, call it accountability, and hope nobody remembers the threats that started the whole fight. But Kennedy remembered. And when he reminded the chamber, you could almost hear the collective "oh." Because when the receipts come out, the narrative falls apart. The Democrats aren't outraged because the court is corrupt. They're outraged because the court refused to obey them. That's why this moment hit so hard. Kennedy didn't scream. He didn't rant. He just held up a mirror. And suddenly the people shouting about ethics were the ones explaining why their own leader once threatened the Supreme Court on national television. Chuck Schumer promised a whirlwind. Well, Senator Kennedy just walked into the Senate and handed it right back to him.